There are a lot of glitches in LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga, all of them creating unique and shocking results, breaking what we know the game to be. The glitches of LEGO Star Wars spawned a culture of thousands of gamers around the world pushing the limits, all in hopes of finding a new way to have some fun in their favorite game. Throughout the last 17 years, there's been a wide variety of glitches discovered, documented, and shared, but some are certainly a lot more well known than others. Which is why today, we're going to be breaking down and chipping into the depths of the LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga glitch Iceberg, featuring the most cohesive and well-documented collection of the game's glitches, with over 40 of the game's most iconic flaws. At the top, featuring glitches that even a novice to the game may be familiar with, all the way to the bottom, where some of the most complicated, obscure, and shocking glitches the game has to offer resides, some of which only a handful of people on this entire planet even know about. Today, we'll be covering all of them, going into how to perform them, what they do, when and how they were discovered, and any additional information, creating the ultimate collection of this game's amazing brokenness. Let's get right into it. Starting at the top. Triple jumping. Probably the most well-known and simple glitch in the entire game, triple jumping lets you quickly and easily gain an extra bit of height anywhere you want in free play. When you play as any character that can do a slam attack, such as a Jedi, the character actually moves slightly upwards before crashing back down. If you switch characters right after doing the slam, that upwards momentum is kept into the switch, giving you a significant height boost. This glitch renders all high jump characters useless, completely breaks a bunch of puzzles in the game, and is one of the easiest glitches to do in the entire game. It's pretty hard to trace back when this glitch may have been first discovered. However, since this glitch is also possible in the previous two LEGO Star Wars installments, it was likely known about before the game even released, as videos exist online of people triple jumping in the OG games before TCS even came out.
Okay, now we all know you can do a double jump, but you can also do a triple jump. This is the video that I'm going to show you. Okay, to do the triple jump, you have to do a double jump, then in the air switch back and forth really fast, like this.
Yoda clipping. Yoda clipping, especially in the context of speedrunning, is probably one of the most important and prevalent glitches in the entire game. With basically any ceiling in the entire game, if you play as Yoda and do a triple jump while against it, you can clip straight through the ceiling. This can allow you to skip doorways, puzzles, and so much more. And to be clear, Yoda can clip through basically any ceiling in the game, even stuff such as this thin doorway on secret plans. The discovery of this trick dates back to November 2018, when speedrunner Zolas first posted about it. However, as I continued to research, I was actually able to find this video from 2015 of someone doing a Yoda clip to get out of bounds. And as I delve even deeper into the abyss that is old LEGO Star Wars glitch videos, I was able to find this video with 71 views of someone doing a Yoda clip all the way back in 2011, making this most likely the oldest known footage of someone ever doing a Yoda clip.
You're calling me Django, and Yoda, or Yoda Ghost, and a Droidica. Now what will happen?
Behind the Cantina bar. In the Cantina, you can basically access any area you want except behind the Cantina bar. However, if you stand at the door that leads outside and spam switch, you can get behind the door. If you switch to either Django or Boba Fett, you can fly around the wall out of bounds and land behind the bar with the shopkeeper. This is by far one of the most documented glitches in the game's history, with dozens of videos dating all the way back to the late 2000s. Once you're back here, there really isn't much you can do, but it's still pretty cool to access this seemingly impossible to get to area. Newtown glitches. Newtown is probably the most broken level in the entire game, so I'm going to put all the glitches in this one section. I know many people as kids, myself included, spent hours messing around in this level, and here's what you can do. First, let's get this cart and drive it under the boat. By doing this, we can push the boat up onto land and it just drives around. Next, let's get in this fire truck with player 2, and normally when you park it by the church, it creates a new fire truck that locks in place and despawns the other one. But with player 2, it keeps both of them. And sometimes they may get a little bit stuck on each other. Also, the fire truck gets some really weird properties at this point and can just drive over objects like it's nothing, and it likes to partially clip itself into walls. We can use this partial clip to jam the fire truck into an outside wall, and by really quickly getting out, in, and back out, we can get outside the map free to explore the landscape. If that's too hard though, it's okay, since if you jam the boat into the fire truck, that's another way to get out. If that's too boring, let's hop on this tauntaun, use it to get on the roof of this house, and take a ride in the sky. There are so many glitches in this level, and they all play a huge part in early LEGO Star Wars glitch culture on YouTube. Play as a vehicle. If you call in the second player and have player 1 get into a vehicle, such as this car in the cantina, and start driving, you can have player 2 switch to the car, allowing you to play and drive around as if it was a playable character. If you drop that player out, the car will still follow you as if it's an AI character, which can be pretty goofy. This is by far the most recorded glitch in the history of this game. There are quite literally hundreds of videos ranging throughout the entire history of the game, some of which have hundreds of thousands of views, making this most likely the most viewed and most widely known glitch in the history of LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga. Menu hard locks. This one may just be the shortest one to cover, but if you're playing with 2 players and have one get far enough off the edge of the screen, sometimes they'll get dropped out and back in, and the icon may flash sometimes if it tries to do this. If you time a pause with this player at the exact same time this happens, you can actually pause the game at the same time they're temporarily dropped out. Since you're now in the pause menu with a player that is technically dropped out, none of their inputs work to navigate the menus. You can still use the global input buttons to scroll up and down, but that's it. You can't press any of the options and you're just stuck in the menu. The only way to get out is to restart the game. This glitch is something that occasionally happens on accident as well.
Alright. No, you're player 2. Yeah.
Gizmo soft locks. Has this ever happened to you? You're playing LEGO Star Wars, having a great time, and next thing you know, you can't force this gear on Droid Factory, preventing you from finishing the level. Assuming everyone watching has played this level, about 1 in 128 of you would have had this issue. However, if this didn't happen, what about this bucket vanishing? These levers and negotiations not being forcible? You can't press this button, not being able to use this Stormtrooper panel, or this one, or not being able to use these R2 panels, or these bombs not blowing up. The list goes on, but these all happen due to the same reason, and it's called a Gizmo soft lock, and each one has around a 1 in 256 chance of happening. With how many areas these can happen in, that means you have about a 50% chance of at least one of them happening if you play the game to 100% completion. I won't get too much into the specifics as to why this happens, as it's pretty complicated, but I may make a video going a bit more into this in the near future, so let me know if you want to see that. There are not a ton of videos of these soft locks online, but I can estimate that these soft locks have quite literally occurred thousands of times across everyone playing the game. You can find people complaining on forums, clips of people soft locking in their playthroughs, and so much more. The worst possible instance of getting a soft lock is while playing through a super story, such as not being able to press this button at the end of 5-6, forcing you to restart the entire episode from the beginning. And with that, we're on to the second layer. Still well-known glitches, but not quite as surface level as the first level, starting with ghost hearts. This is one you may have encountered by accident, but if you've ever noticed your hearts blanked out like this, well, this is ghost hearts. In order to understand how this happens, let's talk about how dying works. It happens in 2 phases, the death and the shatter. In most cases, they just happen at the same time, but in certain cases, they happen at different times. This is most dramatic in Gunship Cavalry, where you can see the death happen here with the hearts going dark, and then a decent bit later, the ship shatters into pieces. If you load into a different room between these 2 animations, you get ghost hearts, which has the same effect as invincibility until you switch characters again, losing the effect. This one in Secret Plans is one that casual players have been accidentally doing for many years, and there's a few old videos online documenting this. Invisible lightsabers. This one's super simple. Do a double jump slam and press the special button to sheath the lightsaber at the peak, and keep holding the special button and your lightsaber will be invisible. The effect goes away once you let go. I originally heard about this glitch from a YouTube comment someone left in my 60 useless facts video, and it's surprisingly not very well documented for how simple it is. Yoda grabs. This is another crucial piece of speedrunning tech. Not only can Yoda clip through ceilings, but he can grab objects through walls as well. If you run into a wall as a Jedi and switch to Yoda, you can grab objects such as mini-kits and studs through the walls. This allows you to skip quite a few puzzles in the game, such as these gate puzzles in Jedi Battle, the color puzzle in Droid Factory, and this door puzzle in Secret Plans. I believe this was found somewhere around late 2018, but due to a lot of the game's speedrunning history from that time being lost, it's hard for me to pinpoint an exact date. T-posing. For this next one, I'm only going to be using other people's footage, of which I credited in the bottom right. The reason for this is I can't find a consistent way to replicate this, but sometimes characters in the cantina will start to do a T-pose. It seems to happen to General Grievous way more than all the other characters, and I really don't know what causes it or how to do it, and it's also quite rare, which is why I was not able to get any of my own footage for it. Luckily, there are quite a few videos documenting this, and it's something that's happened to myself in the past as well.
Box controller. I found this super weird glitch. You ready? So, General Grievous walks normally with his lightsabers out, and then when you put your lightsabers away, he does this. This is the best glitch I've ever seen in the game, and I rate it probably about like 9 out of 10.
Transition skips. If you push a CPU character up against a transition that leads to a previous room, kill them, and stand in their hitbox when they respawn, they will phase through the transition. You can then switch to them on the other side, in most cases letting you get out of bounds. This is only possible on certain transitions since it depends on a few factors all panning out, such as respawn location, and it's way easier to do with lightsaber characters compared to someone with something like a blaster. This is a common method used to get out of bounds in many of the game's rooms, some of which may be used for skips, accessing areas you normally cannot in story mode, or just for fun. The original concept of transition skips was found in LEGO Star Wars the video game back in mid-2016, however, it's a lot easier in that game since the transitions have no hitbox at all and you can just push characters right through them. The setup to get to the transitions with the hitboxes in the Complete Saga wasn't found until 2019, with the first one being this one of Retake the Palace. Drop-in warps. Drop-in warps can occur when you trick the game into thinking you are in a location that you're normally not. As an intended mechanic, your CPU may warp over to you to catch up to you and stay close. However, by standing in certain areas, you can trick the game into thinking that you're somewhere else, such as farther into the level or in a different room, and by calling in player 2 in these spots, they will spawn in that other room. These exist all over the game, and some of them are more broken than others, but they all allow for some very broken moments. This has been an integral piece of speedrunning the game for many years, although it remains relatively unknown about from a casual standpoint due to the fact that not only do you need 2 players, but one of them needs to drop out and drop back in at a very specific timing, often requiring precise camera panning and positioning. Upwarps. Another super simple one. If you're playing in free play and switch characters while in out of bounds collision, your character will instantly snap back up to the top of the floor. There are some more unique results that you can get out of this though, such as switching in this corner in Count Dooku allows you to hit a tiny piece of collision above, causing you to warp up. There are tons of random spots you can upwarp, and it's something that a lot of people most likely came across when playing through the game normally, such as this video from 2009 showcasing an upwarp from the General Grievous level.
You gotta look like a goose. No, I'm just kidding, not literally look like a goose. But look, see? You just gotta be a switcheroo idiot. See? That's blasting to the heaven. No idea, it just randomly picks it. Now see?
And with that, we're on to the third layer, featuring glitches that are still pretty simple in nature, but maybe a bit more obscure and not as many people know about, starting with vehicle transition skips. This glitch has the same concept as a transition skip, where the end goal is to end up on a backside of a transition, but the route to get there is a bit different. To do a vehicle transition skip, you push a vehicle behind a transition, which for some reason you can just do, call in the second player, and get in the vehicle from the other side of the transition. Normally this would just cause you to hit the transition, but if you drop out before that happens, they can get in the vehicle as a CPU, from there you can call back in, jump out, and you're out of bounds once again. Bonus door menu, Wii. This is our first glitch on the list that is exclusive to only the Wii version of the game, meaning this will not work on PC, Xbox, or PlayStation. If you enter this door in the cantina that lets you watch the game trailer and the Indiana Jones trailer, it appears that there's only 2 options you can click. However, on the Wii version, you can just keep scrolling down past these two options into an invisible menu. This menu goes on literally forever. You can scroll and it never ends. If you select any of these invisible options on the menu, the game instantly crashes, but I'll talk a bit more about crashes later. There's a few videos here and there covering the topic online, but for the most part this remains pretty obscure, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few people found this on accident. Tennis. This one is a bit silly, but if you turn on the perfect deflect extra, shoot a bolt at your other character with a lightsaber, and deflect it back at another character with a lightsaber, you can start deflecting it back and forth with each other playing a mini game of tennis. I guess you could argue this isn't a glitch because technically everything is working as intended, but I'm not too sure if the developers wanted this to happen. I was able to find a video all the way from 2009 of someone doing this. There's also a video from 2015 from speedrunner TSG of the same concept happening, but completely on accident. In-game time manipulation. In any level with the in-game timer, it follows a few rules. It runs when you're playing the game, and doesn't run during cutscenes and when the game is paused. We're able to abuse the fact that the in-game timer doesn't run when paused by pausing the game over and over with the game running for the shortest amount of time possible between each pause. If you unpause and repause fast enough, the game can actually progress, but the in-game timer does not. We can see a more dramatic effect of this on an auto-scroller such as Battle Over Coruscant, where by the time I reach the first mini-kit of the level, my timer on the side pausing is already almost a full 4 seconds behind the one with no pausing at all. Obviously this is still slower in real time, but it's just an interesting way to mess with the in-game timer. This also works in basically any early era LEGO game with an in-game timer. Wall climbing. See this wall? Well, you can climb up it. And this one, and this one, and this one you can actually climb up forever. Wall climbing is pretty simple. Jump into a wall as a small character and push against the wall. Switch to Grievous, stop pushing against the wall, jump up, switch back to the small character and repeat. You can use this to gain massive amounts of height on basically any vertical wall in the game. This was originally found in January of 2017 by speedrunner Zolas, and this used to be a big part of speedrunning the game, but the discovery of Yoda clips phased this tech out of being regularly used. Crashes. I talked about the bonus door crash earlier on Wii, but there's quite a few different ways this game can crash, including things completely out of your control, such as mathematical calculation errors occurring when the game tries to load the dynamic grass in levels like Endor. Certain crash cases can also cause interesting results where the game doesn't quite crash but still starts to break down. In this example on Endor, we can see the floor starts to lose collision, the CPUs bug out, and we can just walk under the map as if it doesn't even exist. This is more so an issue on the PC version of the game, and it can be heavily hardware dependent on how much your game crashes. In order to circumvent this, speedrunners are actually allowed to use a program that removes this grass in order to balance the playing level. There is a bunch of other ways to crash this game, which I've covered in other videos such as my 60 useless facts video, so I recommend checking that out if you want to see more. 2-player barrier flips. We make a rare appearance in a ship level for once to talk about 2-player barrier flips. Unlike levels on the ground, where your second player is always part of your team and an actual existing player, Player 2 in ship levels is simply just invisible and dragged around inside of Player 1 and spawns inside of Player 1 when you call them in. If you call them in at a peak of a flip, you can utilize the height to get over barriers such as this TIE Fighter door and Gunship Cavalry. However, you can also chain these backflips back to back, allowing you to climb up hills such as in Hoth Battle, where you can get up this hill and behind this TIE Fighter door, or in Falcon Flight, allowing you to get up this rock and inevitably behind it. You can do this basically anywhere you want, even for useless stuff, such as getting past this wall on Bounty Hunter Pursuit, causing you to fall under the map, soft-locking you. This was discovered by speedrunner Shred in June of 2019, and is still a big element in many collectible speedruns to this day. Grievous Heart Glitch. For this video in particular, I tried to make it so that I ignored glitches that were single instance glitches in levels, but this one in particular is pretty iconic and interesting, so I figured I would include it. In 3-3, if you load the red brick room while playing the level and then leave it, and then attempt to kill Grievous with a thermal detonator, he will go down to 0 hearts but not die. He will be completely invincible and there's seemingly nothing you can do to finish the level. However, if you go back to the red brick room again, the level ends. I was able to find videos over 10 years old of people having fun with this glitch.
There's a glitch, General Grievous, a General Grievous glitch, General Grievous, you can see he's not dying because he had all his hearts left, and then he's still And in there,
This next video, from only 17 days after the game release in 2007, has over 250,000 views. What model toaster did you use to record that? We've now reached the bottom half of the iceberg, delving deeper into the realm of obscurity. At this point, only LEGO Star Wars experts will know about most of these, starting with speeder clipping. In the Mos Eisley levels and a few bonus levels, there are these land speeders you can get in and drive around. However, the hitbox of them is a little bit weird. If you jam the second player between a wall and the speeder, you can clip them right through the wall. This can be pretty precise, and the conditions to do this on certain walls can be quite specific, but you can do this with practically any part of the speeder, including the back engine pieces. This also works with the vehicle at the start of Theed Palace as well. Super jump canceling. The game has a built-in mechanic that if a character gets stuck somewhere for long enough, they will just yeet themselves out to the latest piece of safe ground they were standing on, which is often somewhere in the middle of an open floor. Like I said, this is actually a built-in and intended mechanic to free characters who are stuck, but these super jumps can be interrupted in a few ways. If a droid is doing a super jump, simply just forcing them for a short period of time interrupts it. If a character can be force choked, that can also do it. Being able to cancel these doesn't have much use on its own, but super jumps are a bit strange in the sense that your character will always jump in a perfectly straight line from where they were stuck back to their last save point. Yes, that includes through walls and floors. So if you interrupt a super jump while a character is on the other side of a wall, this is a great way to get out of bounds. For example, on Camino, we'll set our last save point spot to be right here, and making sure to only touch non-safe points, jam R2 behind these barrels so he's stuck, and then wait for him to try to jump back to the safe spot to free himself. We can force him while he's out of bounds to interrupt the super jump, and now R2 is outside the map. There are 5 super jump cancels used in the any % speedrun, 3 of which use R2, and most of them have only been discovered in the past few years. Vehicle squish ejects. If you get stepped on by an AT-ST, your character will smush into the ground for a few seconds before popping back up. Sometimes though, your character will launch up surprisingly high when they gain control. However, we can be even more dramatic with this effect. This is a clip from February 2023 where I accidentally crush Yoda with the walker and he shoots up gaining a massive amount of height, almost skipping the entire ramp section to get up on Kashyyyk. Following this, Glitch Hunter P53 was able to create a tool-assisted speedrun that gained enough height to make it all the way up. Shadow vehicles. A pretty niche one here, but there are 2 spots in the game where if you take a vehicle through a transition into another room, you can actually keep driving it, instead of the game taking it away from you. These 2 levels are Secret Plans and Mos Eisley Spaceport. However, this glitch specifically occurs when you backtrack to the previous room with a vehicle. There's 2 ways to set this up. If you want to do it with 100% consistency, first, bring the vehicle to the next room, reload the room, call in player 2 and get in the vehicle with one of the players, but drop them out during the animation of them entering. Drop them back in once they're in the vehicle, drop out the player out of the vehicle, and load into the previous room. If you did everything correctly, the vehicle and character will become completely black. You can also do this by having one character get in the vehicle at the same time as the other player reloads the previous room, but this setup is a bit more inconsistent. You can continue to drive around these vehicles, but the speeder in Mos Eisley Spaceport in particular has some interesting physics, and bugs out when you interact with it. If a Jawa hijacks it, the game crashes. Interestingly, the color that is achieved on the vehicles is actually the exact same shade you get when you turn on the silhouettes extra. I really don't know much into the technical reason as to why this happens, but I can assume that some people likely could have maybe managed to do this on accident. Lag clipping. The physics engine in LEGO Star Wars is frame rate based, meaning that if your frame rate is at different values than the standard 60 or 30 frames per second, it can produce some strange behavior. At extremely low frame rates though, you can literally clip through objects. On the PC version, this is most commonly done by just pressing the Alt and Tab keys back to back, which quickly minimizes and reopens the game, generating a bit of lag. If you do this in certain corners, you can clip straight through walls. Doing this is dependent on your PC specs though, as a garbage PC will give you much better results than a really good one. There's another setup where you can also clip directly through almost any wall in the entire game by running into a wall and lagging the game at the same time you switch to General Grievous. His large hitbox causes him to just clip right through. Spinning camera. The title screen of the game appears to just be a static menu, but it actually exists in a fully 3D map file with the camera just pointing at the menu options. We can mess this up a little bit though. If we enter the cantina and load the episode 1 door at the exact same time we enter the shop, it causes this glitch camera that persists until we restart the game again. If we go back to the title screen, the camera is spinning all around in random directions and does not line up with the LEGO Star Wars text at all. This continues if you load into a file or any level or anything at all. The game is technically fully playable, but sometimes you run into issues with the camera dragging your character around and sometimes objects off camera not loading in correctly. Django Car. While this glitch is called Django Car, you can do this with any character. If you call in the second player and have them get in a vehicle, if you drop them out, instead of dropping out, they will just hop out of the vehicle and you need to drop them out one more time for them to actually drop out. This is intended so you can't drop out a character while they're in a vehicle, but if you drop out a character during the animation of them entering a vehicle before they actually get in, they can drive the vehicle while dropped out. However, the character doesn't know they're in a vehicle, meaning they try to take the pathing that they would normally take, but with the restricted turn radius the vehicles have, it creates some pretty funny moments as the AI struggles to navigate their way through the level. Pairing this with the play as a car glitch, what many people don't know is that if you get one of these vehicles off screen while a player is in it, the player will just convert into the vehicle. If you do this twice with the floor cleaner on Darth Maul, you are now nothing but 2 floor cleaners and can literally do nothing. Floating stormtroopers. Normally when you use the force choke ability on an enemy, they will just die after holding the force for a few seconds. However, if you push your Jedi into a slope during this process, it'll interrupt the force choke and lock the enemy floating in the air. However, the floating enemy still moves with your player even if you switch characters. Every time I jump, the trooper goes up and down as well. You can repeat this glitch over and over and have a massive army of upside down floating stormtroopers. 4 layers down, 2 to go. At this point, all the glitches left on the list are very obscure and are known only by people very familiar with glitches in this game. Droideka speeder boosting. This one is pretty simple, but not many people know about it. If you put a droideka on a speeder with exploding blaster bolts and invincibility and shoot at the right angle, the speeder will zip off at ludicrous speeds in the opposite direction. This was found by speedrunners Zach and Fezteo back in early 2020. Player 3 glitch.
Now 3PO is running away from the panel? I can't... Is this a soft lock? I think I just got a soft lock.
3PO pan?
I can't switch to 3PO.
Oh, wow, you're...
Well,
That's where
I made up some time.
I just soft locked.
This one is really weird, and researching into this one for this video actually resulted in a new 20-second time save for the any % speedrun being found. When you have 2 players called in and stretch the camera far enough, the game may switch one of the players to a closer player on your team to bring everyone back together. However, in very specific and rare cases, this will coincidentally happen at the same time that a CPU character dies, and the game tries to switch them to the dead player. It fails and drops your player out and sets your dropped out player to another player. That may be a bit tough to follow, but the end result is that one of the other characters becomes completely bugged and they just start running in one direction. There's nothing you can do to stop them, you can't switch to them, you can't do anything. This may seem pretty harmless, but for some reason this CPU with the player 3 glitch can activate doors.
What? R2? No, I just got soft locked again! R2 is in the box pushing room. And I can't switch to him.
This means in certain scenarios, you enter a room and the CPU with player 3 glitch immediately runs back into the previous room, and this just repeats over and over. However, in my research for this video, we found something a bit interesting. On Mos Eisley's spaceport, the final room of the level, your team is split up, with a bunch of them waiting for you at the spy fight, including C-3PO. This means if you activate the player 3 glitch earlier in the level, when you enter the end room, C-3PO is just wandering around. With a bit of maneuvering with the camera, you can manipulate C-3PO to walk into the Falcon and end the level for you, while you are 3 rooms farther back in the level. You're standing in the corner, and next thing you know, boom, the level ends. This effect goes away if you restart the game or beat a level, however, it does not go away if you only restart the level. In most cases, especially for a casual player, this is really bad. Accidentally getting player 3 glitch in certain levels makes them impossible to beat, such as this clip of someone getting it in Chancellor in Peril.
Immediately, because you're not in building range, you need to come down here and then do that. What the fuck is Luke doing?
I'm not doing anything. Luke is not tagged in. My game is actually soft locked.
Hitbox warps, our first Xbox exclusive glitch on this entire list, and probably one of the least understood and hardest to explain glitches in the entire game, since even to this day, no one knows exactly what's happening here. Before I try to explain it though, let me just show you an example of a hitbox warp. Weird, right? How about this one? Yeah, I couldn't tell you what's happening here. For some reason, only on the Xbox version, if your character is partially inbounds and partially out of bounds, where you're inside a wall like here, a strange effect occurs that has the result of a character making contact with basically every single object in the room. This includes studs, mini-kits, power-ups, and like in this cartoon clip, doors. In the case of Jedi Battle where there are no other doors, you still collect all the collectibles in the room, but you get sent to this black screen effect like you see in the video. Like I said, there really isn't much of a technical explanation as to why this happens, and this glitch is actually possible in basically every single early era LEGO game that's on Xbox, including LEGO Batman,
What?
and LEGO Indiana Jones. There's a few theories that exist, such as your hitbox rapidly expanding, or a math error with the character hitbox, but they all have holes in the theories, and even John Burton, the director of TT Games himself, was asked about it, had no clue it even existed, nor could provide any sort of explanation. This is pretty obscure, but actually something that can happen accidentally to people quite a bit on their casual playthrough, as getting jammed in any sort of buggy collision can make this happen. Yoda Death Warps. Another Xbox exclusive glitch that has the exact same effect as hitbox warps, except the setup is a little bit different. To do a Yoda death warp, you just switch to Yoda right as you fall off an edge. If you time it correctly, the hitbox warp effect activates. This allows the glitch to be used in more locations and have a more consistent setup as opposed to just blindly jumping around in walls praying it happens. These are occasionally used in the Xbox free play speedrun, but for the most part are not super well known about. Infinite height glitch. Believe it or not, LEGO Star Wars actually has an infinite height glitch. It may sound surprising since it's relatively unknown, but that's actually because it's not super useful, but it's still pretty cool. First, you need a custom character on a 100% save file. Since this is the only way to get all character abilities on one character, which makes this possible. Equip the gun, enter a level, and start forcing a character. When they break free, force them again and then press the attack button and switch, and off you go. You can't do anything while rising up, and switching characters will remove the effect, but you can quite literally do this forever, soaring into deep space. As far as I could find, there's only one video on YouTube covering this glitch that's from 2009 with under 3,000 views, so I imagine most people never even knew this existed. Yoda location storage. Adding to the long list of wow, Yoda is an extremely broken character glitches in the game, this glitch is really niche, but lets you pick up mini-kits from anywhere on the map just by switching to Yoda. Yoda has a very strange property that when you switch from Yoda to Droideka, the last location Yoda was standing is stored. If at any point you switch back from Droideka to Yoda, Yoda will zip over to that last point for exactly 1 frame before being placed where he should be. In most cases this has no function, but in areas where you have to watch an animation for a minikit to spawn, if you set Yoda's location at the minikit position and run away while it spawns in, at any point later you can simply switch back to Yoda to pick up the minikit as long as it's loaded and on screen. This was originally found in August of 2020 by speedrunner Shred, but didn't have any practical use until I looked more into it while researching this video, where all the clips playing in the background are small speedrun time saves that make use of it. Minus player glitch. This is pretty simple, but a lot of people don't know about it. If you're in any level with a magnet or claw that you can grab players with, if you grab a player and leave them attached and reload the previous room and come back, when you return, that player will just be completely gone from your party. Weirdly enough though, you can still hear them make noises, but they're nowhere to be found. Reloading the room again fixes the glitch, but you can do it as many times as you want. And with that, we've officially reached the bottom layer of the iceberg. Glitches that are so obscure that only a handful of people on this entire planet know about them. Glitches that break all boundaries of what we know about LEGO Star Wars. 3-1 Spline Escape. 3-1, or Battle over Coruscant, is well known as being the on-rails level of LEGO Star Wars, where your ships are locked going in one direction, with absolutely no way to change this or break out of it. But what if you actually could? If you call in both players and switch them to the Millennium Falcon, which is the longest ship in the game, and jam both of them into the top right corner on this exact part of the level, it's actually possible to shove one of the ships outside of the track, causing them to fall down and escape it. This causes some interesting camera effects and is effectively the only glitch that exists in this entire level, but due to how precise and specific the setup for this is, and the fact that you can only attempt it once per run through, it stays as a pretty unknown glitch. The footage I'm showing here is from speedrunner E Roadhouse, who accidentally did it in a run. I was never able to replicate it myself, but it has happened a few times in the game's history. Countdown glitch. When you normally reach a status screen beating a level, it will tell you how many studs you collected, your collectible progress, any rewards from finishing the level, before giving you a menu prompt to either go to the next level, Cantina, or both depending on what game mode you're playing. However, there's a very rare result where you can get on a bug status screen, where it simply just shows a countdown from 5, and once it reaches 0, nothing happens and you're just stuck here forever. This countdown screen was something that would actually come up quite frequently when trying to mod the game. However, many believe that there is no way to actually reach the screen just by playing the vanilla version of the game. However, if you're playing a level in challenge mode and finish the level while collecting the 10th canister at the same time, this happens. That's right, the countdown glitch, completely legit in the vanilla version of LEGO Star Wars. You can do this in a few levels such as Cloud City Trap and Count Dooku, and I imagine a few others as well, but knowledge of this glitch existing is extremely obscure, as there's only one video from 2017 with only 5,000 views showing off the glitch. Xbox Online Hitbox Warps. We talked about the Xbox only hitbox warps in the past, but what happens when you do these same hitbox warps while connected to the notoriously buggy and broken Xbox Online co-op mode? Well, the result for the host is the same as before. However, it is any hitbox warp that causes the black screen that we specifically care about. While the screen may just be black and frozen for the host, the player connecting in can actually still play and see what's going on. The entire game basically just starts to break down at this point, with characters walking through walls, flying in the sky, and so much more broken behavior. Likewise to regular hitbox warps, a lot of the actual technicalities as to why this happens is not really understood, so as much as I would love to dive into the specifics as to why this happens, for now we just need to appreciate it at a surface level. The video playing in the background comes from speedrunner Senor, who experimented with another runner back in 2020 with the concept. There hasn't been any super notable advancements that have come from this glitch in particular, but yeah. Super jump storage. I'm just going to put this in the corner, don't worry about it for now. You may remember super jumps that I covered earlier in the video, but let's dig a bit deeper into the technical aspect of how they work. This trick is a little bit complicated, but luckily I got Glitchmaster P53 to give me an explanation. Okay. When the character gets stuck in a certain area and jumps back to a safe spot with a normal super jump, there's a timer running in the background, and after a character is stuck for a certain amount of time, then they will jump back to the nearest safe location. If you're not stuck, the timer will decrease till it's back to 0. So, if a character is not in a safe range for a certain amount of time, the super jump will activate. What are these safe ranges though? In order to explain this, here is an example of a hallway. The black lines are the walls of the hallway. The way AI pathing works in this game is that the developers placed a bunch of path points, which are invisible green circles throughout the level. Once all the path points have been placed by the developer, the game then draws a straight line between each of the path points to determine where the AI should walk. Each of these green line pathways has a safe range set around it, which is drawn with 2 tangent lines from the circles of path points, the green dots. So if at any point you were ever in any of these safe areas, then your character can super jump there, as it's now been set to your new safe zone. But what if theoretically your character never enters any of these safe regions? There are 2 examples of potential spawn points when you first enter the room in this example provided, point A and point B. In order to do a stored super jump, only point B would make this possible. In other words, you can only do a stored super jump if you're in a room where you have never touched a safe point area, meaning that some rooms that this is just impossible to do in, since all the spawn points from all the doors put you immediately standing in a safe area. So let's say the spawn point here is point B, and we are now not in a safe area and never have been. Now, with no safe point set, if we make a character stuck in order to do a super jump, it actually will not happen as there's no safe point set. However, the timer keeps counting and continues to count up for as long as the character stays stuck. Using this, we can build up the timer for as long as we want. After the timer has been built up, we can then call in that player as player 2 and set up our super jump as normal. However, we're on the clock as this counter starts to count back down once we're no longer stuck. We can now set our safe position to wherever we want our character to super jump to, and then by running outside the path points to make sure we don't change it again and getting them to where we want them to be, which unlike normal super jumps can be anywhere, since the moment we drop them out, the timer is already above the threshold value to trigger a super jump, causing them to jump immediately. The main upside to this versus a normal super jump is that it now allows us to start a super jump from anywhere we want, as opposed to just being restricted to characters where the CPU character can physically get stuck. This allows for many dramatic results that allow for collecting of collectibles that otherwise wouldn't be possible, and just other cool areas that you can force a really crazy super jump that you normally couldn't without doing the storage. This allows us to do things such as collect mini kits that we normally couldn't collect otherwise in story mode instead of free play. Disjointed Stormtrooper panel. Let's go to a bit of a simpler one after that last one. Normally when you load a level, any panel object will place the spinning circle on the closest floor. However, some vehicles, such as a speeder or car, actually have collision on them. This means that if you position them to cover an area where the circle spawns and then reload the room, the panel will use the collision of the vehicle in order to place the circle as opposed to the floor, creating this cool effect where the spinning circle is floating. You might say this is pretty simple, and you would actually be right. However, this video is the first time this glitch is ever being shown publicly in any capacity, so I felt it deserved a spot on this tier of the list. 000 warp. In most cases when you go through a transition to another room while in a vehicle, you actually cannot take the vehicle with you, it just stays in the previous room. However, there are a few instances where you actually can do this, such as the car in Secret Plans and the speeder in Mos Eisley Spaceport. In order to execute this glitch, if you load a new room while in one of these vehicles and immediately jump out of the vehicle on the first frame you load into the next room, your character will seemingly warp to a random part of the map. However, this location is actually at the coordinates x0, y0, z0. As I mentioned earlier though, there's actually only 3 transitions in the entire game that you can actually take a vehicle through, so there's only 5 places where you can actually do this. 3 out of the 5 just put you out of bounds, but of these 3, the one on Mos Eisley Spaceport is the most interesting because of the camera you get. However, the other 2 are even more interesting. Going back into the first room of Mos Eisley Spaceport will actually put you right near the very start of the room, and doing the 000 glitch going into the first room of Secret Plans will actually put you behind this dark side door where a minikit is located. Crane driving. If you remember from earlier, I talked about the Django car glitch, where if you drop out while entering a vehicle, the AI CPU will drive around the vehicle while not called in. You can actually do this in stationary vehicles as well, such as turrets, cranes, etc. However, if you do this and then move them off screen and drop them in again, they'll move a little bit. You can repeat this process over and over, effectively moving the stationary vehicle around the map. In a very dramatic example, you can drive this magnet crane all the way to the end of Betrayal over Bespin. You can drive this turret from the second to the third room of Cloud City Trap, and then you can pick it up with the crane in that room, because why not? You can move this crane in Secret Plans and pick itself up. You can move this massive turret in Pit of Carcoon, creating a mobile cannon of death. There's so many fun things you can do with this glitch that all produce some visually shocking results. This is relatively unknown about besides the inner speedrunning community discovering it a few years ago, but it still remains as one of the most iconic obscure glitches in the game. Transition slingshotting. It's finally time to take everything we know with LEGO Star Wars glitches and mold it all together into one final result. In order to make this more interesting though, my goal here is going to be to collect this mini kit all the way up on these wooden platforms in Endor in story mode, which is normally only possible in free play. None of our characters can jump that high. Our journey begins by entering the second room of Endor, rearranging our characters a bit, and returning to the first room. From here, we're going to start building up a stored super jump. If you remember the first rule of a stored super jump, you need to have a spawn point in an area that is not a safe zone. Lucky for us, this spawn isn't. In addition, the way the characters are arranged here conveniently has it so R2 is stuck in the corner due to the other players pushing him, building up our super jump timer. We're just going to sit here a bit and let that build up. Now, we're going to use a bit of lag, which if you remember from earlier can make the game's physics a little bit wonky. This causes the characters to shift around a little bit, which just allows us to free R2 without him bumping into the transition to the next room. From there, we're going to set our save point up top, and while carefully staying outside the save points on our way back down to make sure it stays up top, we can finally drop out R2 to trigger the super jump. But before we see what happens, there's something I said earlier that was only partially true. But super jumps are a bit strange in the sense that your character will always jump in a perfectly straight line from where they were stuck back to their last save point. Yes, that includes through walls and floors. There's one thing in the entire game that a super jump cannot go through, and that is room transitions. The character just gets stuck, sitting there suspended in the transition, building up massive amounts of velocity before they just give up after a while. Or you can also switch to them to enter the next room. However, if we angle ourselves in just a way where we get ourselves stuck on a transition to build up an insane amount of speed, only to slide off on one side, we can use the speed to shoot off into the stratosphere, breaking all known laws of the Star Wars universe and the final frontier for glitch hunting in LEGO Star Wars. We can use this unbelievable amount of height to complete our final goal of collecting the mini kit, including our journey through the glitches of LEGO Star Wars. Thanks for watching.